Hi guys, welcome to another video. Remember in the last video we went through page 54 of this Asuro manual and we went through the first program and we spoke about how that code works. One thing I want to do in this video before we go on to writing programs and writing more programs is this book is actually very handy. Now the problem is they just overload it with so much information so that when you're going through it as a student you're just like, what the hell is all of this, especially if you haven't done C programming before. So what I would advise firstly is, like I said, go through this C tutorial, 3 hours 46 minutes. You will learn absolutely loads about C programming language, and that will just give you, it will make you comfortable when you're back going through this book. You'll see a lot of these confusing programming jargon, and it'll just make sense to you. So what we'll do is in the video after this one, we'll be improving on that program that we wrote. We'll use some if statements, and I'll actually flash my Azure as well. I haven't actually flashed it in 6 months, so hopefully it still works. But we'll flash that, and then we'll write some cool code for that one. In this video, we'll be going through page 54 to about page 65. In these pages here, 55 to 70, I would strongly recommend read it word for word, try and soak it in. 80% of it you won't understand, and that's fine. I mean, it is there's a lot of jargon there, and that's cool. But when you get programming later on, a month's time, 2 months time, as you start coding, you'll remember a lot of this will start coming back to mind. So currently we're on page 54. So what we'll do is let's go to page, I believe it's page 60 with the Azure book. There's a lot of code in here, like this bit here, that you will 100% be using. And so what I did, which really helped me, was I went through these pages 55 to 80 or to 70, 55 to 70. I went through these pages here, copied this code and saved it. I saved it on my Notion account, but you can save it anywhere, any note app that you have. Save them because 100% when you're writing your code, this is what you're going to be using. So for example, this one here on page 60, this is the pole switch code, and this code is used for collision detection. You know, the pole switches on the front of the Azure, these here. So this code, literally what this code does is it detects if there's some switch, then turn it red, otherwise keep the LED green. So you can just replace LED change with motors, stop the robot, etc. So we'll be going through that later on anyways, but you definitely want to be keeping this code here on page 60. Then the top of page 61, nice big chunky bit of code here. This code has the Azure driving forward with a green LED. When it detects a collision, then it stops the Azure and turns the LED red. Like, you're definitely gonna want to know how to use that. So that's literally, you could copy and paste that into your code editor now, flash that to the Azure, and it will do that. It will go forward until there's a collision and then stop. Let's go to some more code here, pretty much the same thing. Let's go to page 64. Here, you've got some line data code. This is the code. This is basically the logic behind how you're going to get the Azure to stay on the line and follow the line. If the left side or if the right side of the Azuro's light sensor, infrared sensor, is greater in color than the left side, then do command 1, which would be to go left, and vice versa to go right. So this is the logic behind this code, but they actually have in this book the full code that you need basically to stick the Azure to the line, which is amazing. Bottom of page 64 is these are the codes that this is the code that you use to write things to the console screen. I use this mostly for debugging purposes. So if I wanted to know, is the Azure detecting a line or not? Has it detected a collision again, a second one or a third one? And then I'd have it write to the screen so that I could see what was happening with the Azure and whether different bits of code were being implemented. So if you're debugging your code and you're not sure what's happening, you definitely want to be using this command here, so bottom of page 64. We'll go through that in a bit more detail later on. Pages 65 from this page for the next couple of pages, maybe about 4 pages. Yep, here as well. 16, yeah, 60, yeah, 65 to 69. I'd say all of these pages here, yeah, 65, 69. These are going over all of the parameters that you'll be using for each Azure function. So These are the parameters that you'd be using for the photo transistors on the front, the left and the right one. You definitely want to know how to use those. These are the parameters that you're using for the motors, reading and writing, motor speed, motor direction, sleep. You're going to use that a lot. Back LEDs, front LEDs, status LED. So by parameters, we basically mean so status LED, and then you're going to pass it in a parameter which is going to be off, green, red, or yellow. For front LED, you're going to have either on or off. Back LED, you're again going to have off or on. So this is what we mean by parameters. So when you go through it, sleep, you're going to have how much time you want the processor to sleep for. So here you've got 260, which will force the 216, sorry, which will force the processor to wait for 3 milliseconds. Motor direction, you've got forward, you've got brake, also got reverse, backwards. So forward, reverse, brake. If you was to put forward into this function, that wouldn't work. You'd have to put FWD for forward, RWD for backward, and brake for brake. And so you can see it literally discusses in a fair bit of detail. There's also free as well, another parameter. So brake would short circuit the motors and cause the motors to stop running. Obviously, the Zero doesn't actually have disc brakes like a car or anything. Although that would be a cool mod if you could do that. You got motor speeds. So the speeds are from 0 to 255, 0 being not moving at all, 255 meaning going as fast as it can. So, like I said, go through these parameters, these pages 65 to 69, and get used to these parameters. Now, here's where it gets very juicy. So, top of page 70, this is the perfect code. It's literally complete code. This is exactly what you need to drive the Asuro around the line. You take this code here, copy and paste that into your code editor, flash that to the Asuro, and your Asuro will go follow the line. And if it comes off, if the line goes to the left, the Asuro will go to the left. If the line goes to the right, the Asuro will go to the right. The only thing that you need to do as it relates to this code here would be to add to it. But if you just flash this to Asuro just as it is, you'll definitely pass the module if you're studying at uni. If you want to do any better, you want to get higher grades, then add something to this. Get the Asuro to do other stuff. And if you want to get top grades, then you want to be creating some sort of logic or function that would get the Asuro that if it comes off the line to get back onto the line. Some of the things that I did was spinning in a circle or reversing and then turning, etc. So, bottom of page 71, here we've got the code that you'd need for the pole switches, which is the switches on the front of the Asuro. So you activate the pole switch here, and then you're saying if one of the poles have been pressed, then turn off the motors. So like I said, you definitely we'll be going through all of these in detail anyways, but you want to read through these pages. So from page 71 or up to page 71 from page, what was it, 54? Yeah, from page 54. Here you go. So what I'll do is I will put a link to this down below, but if you just type in Asuro Robot PDF, it's the first link that comes up, and I'll put a link to it as well in the description. Cool. So go through these, read these programs, and just familiarize yourself with some of the parameters that you'll be used with the different functions. If you just use this code here, that'll be more than enough for you to pass the module. Cool. All right, and then so in the next video we'll be improving on this original code that we wrote as well, and I'll be flashing my Asuro. That's if it still works. If not, then I have to build a whole new Asuro for you guys. Cool. All right. See you in the next one. Thank you.